What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You are here with the Six-Man Show Postgame Live, presented by Thrivent. Your Orlando Magic lose to the San Antonio Spurs 114-112 in a game where if just any one or two additional things would have gone the Magic's way, you would have probably won this game. Very frustrating way to lose. I've actually picked this comment out. I know we're going to get to Super Chats and our sponsor here in a second, but really I just felt like this was the best way to possibly sum up tonight's game from our friend Ginny in Richmond. Well, that was ugly. Yeah, we're going to get to the rest of the chat here in a second, but I saw that and I was like, well, no better way to start tonight's postgame live, because that's exactly what that was. We're going to get into my thoughts here in a second. We're going to get to our sponsor here in a second, a couple of super chats, but most importantly tonight, we are going to talk about your guys' frustrations with this loss. We know that there's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to get off your chest, so throw them in the chat. If you are on YouTube, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll get to them. If you are on X, we appreciate you for checking us out. We do field our comments primarily from YouTube, though, so if you want to get involved in the conversation, go ahead and head on over there, leave a like, and we'll get to what you guys have to say. But before we do anything else, I want to thank Thrivent for sponsoring the show. Marc.Abraham, he is a financial advisor with Thrivent. He's been a diehard Magic fan for a super long time, season ticket holder, Section 118. He specializes in everything under the sun when it comes to finances, retirement planning, budgeting, saving, debt elimination. If you have a question about finances, there's a very, very good chance that Marc.Abraham is going to be able to help you out in terms of getting you answers, increasing your financial literacy, so that you know what that next step is that you need to take in your financial journey. Both his number and his email are right here on the screen. You can reach out to him for a complimentary phone call at 407-366-4364. One more time, that's 407-366-4364, or marc.abraham@thrivent.com. Please reach out to him. He loves the Magic fandom. He's a big fan of what we do over here at the Six-Man Show, which is why he and Thrivent are sponsoring the Six-Man Show postgame live. Shout out to Mark. Shout out to Thrivent. We got a couple super chats here real quick that I want to get to before I get to my thoughts on tonight's game. Mr. TV, always appreciate you pretty much regularly. Every time I've done a postgame live, every time I've watched a postgame live, Mr. TV, you come in with the super chats. We appreciate you. Who else is ready for P5 and Mo to come back? Show of hands. Anyone? It's getting frustrating on nights like tonight when the offense is stagnant and the energy is low. P5's offense and Mo's energy just feels like you could really use both of them. So, I don't know. And then a tongue-in-cheek comment from Jalen Lawson, 4321, who says, I don't know, maybe the Spurs are just better without Wemby. Clearly, a little sarcasm there, because obviously if your team wins any games without your star player, then that means that you're better without your star player, because that's exactly what everyone's saying about the Magic. So before we dive back into some of your guys' comments, some of your guys' thoughts, I wanted to just kind of share one or two things that I thought about tonight. Tonight, as much as I can remember, felt like the first true trap game of the season. You had everything working for you and every reason why you should have won this game, including... So that's the first thing that kind of makes a game a trap game, right? It's like you're supposed to win the game. Everyone thinks, oh, just chalk that up for a W. Let's move on and talk about something else. And then you have the two big games coming up. You have the game Friday against the Heat. You have the game Sunday against the Knicks. And then you have the NBA Cup coming up as well. So it felt like you have this kind of big situation. Even if I'm being completely honest, listening a little bit to the podcast this past week, I felt like this game was just kind of like, yeah, the Spurs don't have Wemby. They're on the second half of a back-to-back. Forget about it. Like, let's talk about the games that are really going to be a challenge. And I was like, I don't know. Like, the Spurs team hasn't been awful without Wemby. They've been playing really good basketball without Wemby. I think this is just a better team even without Wembanyama than we all thought they were. And so I was concerned, because if the fan base was feeling that way, I was concerned that the players were going to feel that way. And everything that I saw in the first half of tonight's game fit that criteria of the players playing like it was a trap game. Very low energy, very low desire to get to the loose balls and close out on the corner threes. And it was really frustrating to see, because you look at it, again, the second half. I'm actually going to do this a little earlier than I normally do, but I'm going to kind of come over here and look at the game summary. And if you look at the third and fourth quarters, you see that the Orlando Magic actually outscored the Spurs. It looks like that's 63-56. So you actually outscore them by 7 in the second half. And that's frustrating because, again, you feel like if you just show up in the first half with the energy that you needed to show up with, then the rest of the game is yours to take. But because of that low energy, they kind of took off to that 7, 8, 9, at much as many as 15 points at one point, that lead. And then you were fighting back the whole rest of the game. You had these stretches of 2 or 3 minutes where you would go on a little bit of a run, and then they would hit that big three. You know, they would make that big shot. They would make that big stop. They would get that big offensive rebound. And it felt like you needed every single break to go your way, as opposed to, you know, it felt like you couldn't afford for them to make a single shot. You needed a 10-0 run. You needed a 12-0 run. And then because of that run that we had in the fourth quarter, instead of going into the last 2 minutes up 5 points or up 7 points because it was tied at halftime, you're now tied and you still need things to break your way at the end of the game. So just kind of my thoughts. I thought that it was a game that the Magic, yes, definitely should have won. There's a reason why Vegas gave us a 7.5 favorite point spread going into this game. But I also felt like it was a trap game and that we weren't giving the Spurs enough credit. And I feel like they probably came in being like, oh, the Magic feel like they're supposed to win this game. And whenever you have an NBA team in the year 2025 coming into a game where they feel like they have a right to have a chip on their shoulder because the other team isn't respecting them or the other fan base isn't respecting them without their best player, then I just feel like you're kind of set up for failure in that regard. So that's just kind of my thoughts on tonight. I feel like that's a general. We saw the same thing in the first half of the Chicago game on Monday. That's just kind of generally how I felt about the energy in the first half, and it was very frustrating. But enough about what I have to say. Let's get to some of your guys' comments. Thank you guys so much for all of you guys who are here with us right now, by the way. We got quite a few of you here. We got over 100 of y'all over on YouTube and a few of you guys over on X as well. Adam Hunter says, sloppiest game of the season. It's up there. It's definitely up there. We'll look at some of the specific stats here in a few minutes, but I mean, it really just felt like, for me, it wasn't necessarily sloppy. It was more just, again, energy. Here's another reason. Jonathan Sabo 372 said those refs sucked. Yeah, this is not the poorest officiated game of the year. That was this past week against Detroit, because again, that was poor on both sides. But the amount of times where our guys just went up and they were getting hammered or hacked, and like, we have some of the best finishers in the NBA. Jalen Suggs, all intents and purposes, great finisher. Anthony Black, Franz Wagner, Desmond Bane. And other than that last missed layup that he just completely blew because, like the guys on the broadcast were talking about, he was seeking out contact instead of just going for the shot. He was going for the and one in that situation. Our guys do not miss layups at the rate that they were missing layups tonight. Our guys do not miss floaters, do not miss bunnies, do not miss 8-foot mid-rangers, like shots. They don't miss those shots unless there's some form of contact. They don't miss them at the rate they were missing them tonight unless there's some form of contact. And it just felt like by the time, we finally got the call on that Franz 3 that he tied the game from the free throw line. But I'm like, man, like, if that felt like the first call we had gotten basically all night, and like actually a big moment, that was a potential momentum shift. So yeah, I'm not one to complain about the refs, but it felt very, very off. And then obviously the big thing was you were seeing some of the same exact contact down on the other end, and then that was getting called. And I'm like, how is it that Franz Wagner is getting less of a whistle than Dylan Harper? Can we explain that? He's in the 5th year of his career. He's known as a downhill drive to the basket kind of guy. He's known as a guy who's very physical and takes contact very, very well. But we're allowing, I don't know. Very frustrating for sure. Yeah, you look here, point-wise, Franz's dunk literally made the difference. That is the most unlike Franz. That and then the Desmond Bane missed layup are just two of the most unlike them plays I've seen from them all season. But that was definitely frustrated. The K-Will says, what a horrible way to lose. All across the board, what a horrible way to lose. Again, you show up with a little bit more energy. You execute a little bit more. The little bit of the one-sidedness in the third and fourth quarter with the refs, it was just very, very, very frustrating. I see a lot of you guys were getting to the Jonathan Isaac play at the end of regulation. TJ Vroom 7076 says, what a terrible way to end, for sure. I get why you didn't, because there's 1.4 left in the game, and you didn't want to necessarily challenge that play, because if you lose the challenge, then you can't call your timeout, and then you have to get the ball all the way down the court in 1.4 seconds, and Franz already got a great look in 1.4 seconds, but he was already rushed, so there was no way you were getting a better look other than that. But I saw another couple comments. I'm going to try to find it here to call you guys out. I saw that you guys mentioned this. You can't reach in that situation. Here we go. Pink Salmon said, why is J.I. reaching for the ball in that situation? He has a size advantage, and you saw what he did where he blocked the shot. He forced Fox into a disadvantageous portion of the court and then tried to knock the ball away. It's tied. It's not like you're losing in that situation. You need to just keep your hands up, realize that you have the size advantage, realize that if you play defense correctly, then Fox is not going to get a shot off on you. The game goes into overtime. He reaches there, gets the ball first, but then in what looked like a little bit of a separate motion, also got his arm. It didn't matter that Fox was in a shooting motion or not at that point, because they were in the bonus and they were going to get the free throws no matter what. So, Emily mentions here, Jalen playing like a crazy chihuahua. That is a fantastic description for Jalen Suggs, by the way. Love the energy sometimes, but need more poise and professionalism. Absolutely. He has to realize in that situation, I know that he thought he got fouled down on the other end. I actually didn't think he did, and the guys on the broadcast completely agreed with me. But then he was just playing way too aggressive. You have to understand that he had one of the best games offensively. You need him in the game for situations like that. And you have to understand that you got to play good defense without being aggressive and fouling in that situation, fouling out, because then not only do you foul out of the game and you are now out on the offensive side of the ball, but you're also out on the defensive side of the ball, and we're down one of our best defenders when we need you to be in the game for that last defensive possession. Let's see. I'm Jovi mentioning 19 free throws. When have we shot this low attempt-wise? I'm not sure. If someone could look that up for me, I would really appreciate that. I don't know if this is one of our lowest of the year, but again, we average some of the most free throws in the entire NBA for a reason. We are a downhill team. We get to the basket and we draw fouls. It's just what we do. And the fact that we were missing them, again, I mentioned this a few minutes ago. The fact that we were missing some of those shots. Guys like Franz and guys like Anthony Black and guys like Desmond don't just miss shots like that. There is contact. And the fact that contact was getting called one way and not the other was just very, very, very frustrating. Okay. A couple other comments here that I want to get to. J.I. was bad tonight. Aside of the reach that ended up costing us the game, where I feel like he just could have played hands up and we probably would be celebrating a win because we had momentum going into overtime tonight. He objectively was pretty bad. If Noah Penda is the player that we think Noah Penda is, we've already seen more on the offensive side of the ball from Penda in the first 21 games of the season than we have out of J.I. this year. J.I. does not need to be seeing the floor. J.I. is, I feel like every time he touches the floor, especially offensively, he's lowering his trade value, and he's getting beat defensively in ways that he didn't used to get beat. It just feels like he's lost that step last year, gaining all that weight, putting on all that muscle. It really feels like he has just lost a step defensively and not really been able to gain it back. At times, he looks great, but the problem is that used to be the default for J.I., and now we're seeing that J.I. maybe 20-25% of the time. And we're like, oh man, look, J.I.'s back. And then it's like, okay, but that used to be the default version of Jonathan Isaac, and now it's not. And then offensively, man, every single time Jonathan Isaac shoots a shot, I just expect it to miss. Like, it's the opposite of how TDS was the first 15 games of the year, where I was just like, oh, J.I. shot it. Someone box out, get ready for a rebound. Frustrating. Tyler here mentions Fox is absolutely annoying. Fox is definitely working his way up into that magic killer, where every time you play him, you just know that he's going to have that dagger shot a couple times, and he did again tonight. Those threes that he hit over Franz, the 2 threes, I think, in the fourth quarter over the last 4 or 5 minutes, were just sucked so much of the air out of the Kia Center. And you got to give him credit because he hit those shots. Not everyone hits those shots. He hit those shots, and he's just seems like he really enjoys playing against the Magic and always seems to make those plays. So here we go. Another comment from Blazer RPT who says Noah Penda needs to replace Isaac. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. The Only Hero 2714, dedicated fan of the show. Only Hero, appreciate you for showing up, being here. We just looked off. It looked like we were the team coming off a back-to-back, and we missed so many layups. Refs were bad, but we played like trash for 90% of the game. Thank you. I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate the fact that unlike a lot of other people in the chat, you're not blaming the refs for this loss. Again, you show up with energy in the first 2 quarters of this game the way that you can, you don't lose this game. I don't care how bad the refs are. I don't. You just need more energy for closeouts on the defensive side of the ball, energy on the offensive side of the ball. You showed us a little bit more energy, 10, 15, 20% more energy. It's a 2-point game. You lose by 2. If you show a tiny bit more energy in the first half of this game, then you probably don't lose this game because you're probably tied at halftime, and then you run away with it a little bit in the second half. You don't tie it in the second half of the game. So here's a comment for a conversation that's probably going to be had, I would assume, tonight on the podcast when they drop the new episode tomorrow. Hope finally benching Isaac and Jones now. Look, Tyus Jones has not been objectively as bad as he was early on in the year. I would argue that Isaac, for the most part, has been objectively negative at times, and Tyus Jones has at least brought himself to like par territory, like average. He's not really impacting the game negatively, but the problem is he's also not impacting the game positively. He's not. And you need some guys that are playing with a chip on their shoulder and playing with energy. And Jace and Noah Penda have really just shown us that they have composure. They know, for the most part, what play to make and when to make it. So I'm still confused as to why Jonathan Isaac and Tyus Jones are getting so much run when guys like Jace Richardson and guys like Noah Penda could just add energy in games like this. But then again, you also have to realize we're 9-3 in our last 12 games. Guys played with, there were a lot of guys who had off games tonight. So I'm not going to make general meta-narrative comments about the team tonight when this is only the 3rd game we've lost in our last 12 for sure. So another comment about Fox. Those threes were clutch. Can't deny it. Absolutely. Another comment from Tyler. He's a gremlin. Yeah, he is. I'm Jovi, says J.I. just isn't what he used to be. Yeah, and that's okay. Like, nothing about J.I. is one of my favorite human beings on the face of the planet. I don't want to feel like I'm talking out against him. Just like when he plays the way that he plays after multiple injuries, after gaining a bunch of weight to try to play more physically and then losing all that weight, like there's only so much you can expect out of a guy. And after all those injuries, especially with him being lower body injuries, there's only so much he can do to maintain that step that he had those first 3, 4, 5, 6 years of his career. And it's just really frustrating to see. And it's sad to see because I want him to play. I want him to be a part of this team. I want him to be a big part of this team, playing 15 to 20 minutes a night and helping us in big moments of the game defensively. And it was frustrating. So, okay, a couple of other comments here. Walk the Dog said, how did Bane miss that layup? That was rough. I thought that he might have, there was a little bit of contact there. But then you see the backboard angle, and it just seemed like he, again, was just seeking contact and just totally botched the layup in that situation. I'm Jovi, says the Franz missed dunk definitely sums up tonight, though. I think that the guys on the broadcast said the same thing. They were like, man, if that wasn't, a symbol of how this whole game has gone, then I don't know what was. So, great comment here from Rael Daniel 9822. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, my friend. We should have never been down by 15 against a Wembley-less Spurs team. I have nothing to add to that because that's a perfect comment. Jalen Lawson says, when Franz missed the dunk, I kind of already counted the L. It just felt like you were just kind of like, man, this is the kind of night it's going to be. And then, of course, I got my hopes back up when Franz got to the free throw line and he shot all 3 free throws, but then they called the foul on J.I. And I was like, no. Janine Ritzman, always the voice of positivity. Janine, I don't think we give you enough credit for how on nights like tonight, you come in and you just lift us up and you help us to focus forward. Guys, I know that if you are a fan of the Six Man Show Postgame Live, we don't do this often, but if you are a fan of the show, you know Janine Richmond. Can we get a like for Janine and her just constant, ever-loving positivity for this team? She always is a ray of sunshine, even on nights like tonight when we're all negative and we're all down and we're all depressed. We love Janine. Janine's incredible. Janine, thank you so much for everything you do for the show. We love you. Mr. TV says, I'm just ready for this team to be whole again. Absolutely. TJ Vroom again says, Franz and AB both had rough offensive games. Desmond came back to earth. I mean, Desmond was coming off of back-to-back 37-point games. I'm not going to criticize Desmond Bane. I know that he was a little off tonight, but we got more than we bargained for with Desmond the last 2 games, so I'm not going to complain too much about his performance tonight. Joe says that we waited until the end to play with urgency and intensity. Exactly. You play with that same level of urgency and intensity in the first half of the game. And again, I don't think you lose this game. Again, Jalen Lawson says from the very start, the team was playing like something was off. Walk the dog. Comment about Mose. Mose couldn't challenge. He would lose the challenge and the timeout. Exactly. That's why we didn't challenge at the end of the game there. All right. Let's see. Another Devs84 says, not mad at not challenging. That was a foul. So I'm glad we're on the same page about at least J.I. There was as much of a problem with J.I. reaching in that situation as we were about Mose not challenging there. I actually think it was probably best that Mose didn't challenge. He showed a little bit of restraint. It would have been very emotional for him to challenge in that moment. Would have lost it. Would have lost the timeout. We would have had to go the length of the floor with 1.4 seconds left on the clock. We didn't have to do that, which was fantastic. And then Franz got off a great look. Man, credit to the Spurs, the defensive rotation. Luke Cornett, I believe it was, with that block at the end there. That was fantastic. That was as good as you could play defensively in that situation, and I can't complain too much. Let's see. Matthew Thomas says Franz was good. Yeah, I thought that Franz was great. He's 25 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, 0 turnovers, decent night shooting. Missed 1 free throw earlier, but I think only missed 1 free throw all night. Yeah. So, seeing a lot of comments about rigged, seeing a lot of comments about the NBA forced this one into a win. Again, how about this, guys? How about you don't put yourself in a situation where the refs can decide the outcome of the game? How about you actually play with energy in the first half of the game and you don't have a 1-point game or a tied game at the end where the refs have an opportunity to win or lose you the game by 1, 2, or 3 calls? Because I would argue if this team plays the way that they should and plays up to their standard, it's not actually a 2 or 3 point game in the fourth quarter. You're ahead by 6 or 7. And the refs can't decide it from that point. So Mr. TV says P5 would have feasted this game. P5, man, no, you don't watch this show, but if you are somehow, please come back. Because even though the team has been playing great, 9-3 in our last 12, we miss you so much. The offense on nights like tonight misses you. We need to have you back. Please come back soon. If you somehow just happen to be watching this, please, we need you. We miss you. Hurry back whenever you can make it. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and get over to the box score here in a second. We're going to go to a little note of positivity here from Joe Hunter. Says, shake it off and prepare for Friday against the Miami lowercase h Heat. We're very, very excited for that game. That game is going to be huge. Playing the Heat, the Knicks, and then the Heat in a matter of 5 days. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. So let's go ahead and go over to the box score and check this out. Let's look at what we have. Or I guess I already have the summary pulled up from earlier, so we'll check it out. You actually either win or are within 2 points of every quarter except the second, where you only score 20 points. This is where you lose the game right here. This is kind of the energy or lack thereof that I was talking about. You score 64 points in the paint, which I love to see. Once you knew that Wemby was going to be out, you really wanted the team to attack, and they did. 21 fast break points was pretty good. You limit the Spurs in transition to only 9. You have a biggest lead of 1. They have 15. Relatively even on bench points. You only have 10 turnovers tonight, which is fantastic. You forced 19 out of them and then 23 points off of their 19 turnovers. But they have 13 points off of your 10 turnovers. Let's go over here and look at the box score. You got a starting lineup tonight of Suggs, Bane, Tristan Da Silva at the 3, Wagner at the 4, and Wendell Carter Jr. at the 5. Couple of rough shooting nights from some of the main guys. Wendell Carter Jr. coming back down to earth a little bit. Desmond Bane as well. Desmond Bane had 14 points on 15 shots. He was 2 of 3 from deep, but, 15 shots, 14 points, not great. And Wendell Carter, I would argue this is probably one of his worst overall games of the season. 2 for 9 from the floor, 0 of 4 from 3, 1 of 2 from the line. He did have 9 rebounds, but he was a minus 12 and only finished with 5 points. Just a really rough game from him. Tristan Da Silva wasn't bad. He just didn't really make that big of an impact. I actually struggled. The reason why I put the 3-point total down on the ticker at the bottom, is because I was really struggling to see who was going to be the third player, and there wasn't really a third player that had significant of a positive impact for me to put them down at the ticker at the end. So I kind of just pointed generally to our shooting. But I also could have pointed out our free throw shooting, because you only take 19 free throws. And while you can be frustrated at the refs because of 19 free throws, we are not a team that ever really takes 19 free throws. 68.4% from the line is absolutely inexcusable. There's no way around it. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I love that Jace Richardson got some run late in this game. Noah Penda with only 3 minutes, Jonathan Isaac with 12, in only 3 minutes. You can't really point to the plus minus, but Jonathan Isaac in his 12 minutes was a minus 12, and Noah Penda in his 3 minutes was only a minus 1. Noah Penda missed 2 shots in his 3 minutes on the court. Let's see. Obviously, if you look over here, the main thing here is the 31 points from De'Aaron Fox. But, man, look at the balanced scoring here from the Spurs is the one thing I wanted to point out. You have 31 points from Fox. You've got 13 from Keldon Johnson, 16 from Dylan Harper, 15 from Vassell, 11 from Barnes, and 14 from Julian Champagnie. It was just a very overall just rounded night with Fox coming in at the end of the game and making the shots that he knew he needed to make. So it was just a great performance. And I think that the Spurs are kind of getting boxed into being Wemby's team. And I don't think that the Spurs are being focused enough of the fact that beyond Wemby and Stephon Castle, they have a lot of really, really good players on this roster. So a lot of people were like, oh, Spurs don't have Wemby and Stephon Castle. You got to win that game. That's why I was frustrated with that mentality, because I was like, they still have a great roster. Like, there's a reason why this team hasn't just magically started losing games now that Wemby's gone out. It's because they still have a great team. They traded for De'Aaron Fox for a reason. They got that top pick in this past draft, and I just think that they have way more talent than a lot of us are willing to give them credit for. A couple more comments here before we get to the scores from the night, and before we get to, unfortunately, the standings, which we're probably going to be, unfortunately, probably going to drop a couple of spots. But Adam Hunter here, did you really have to wind up on that hard on the missed dunk, Franz? Shaking my head. I'm going to disagree with you here, just because if you think back to how the game was in that moment, if Franz would have made that, I don't remember exactly what the score was, but if Franz makes that dunk, Kia Center goes crazy. He was absolutely not just playing for the crowd, but normally that's a dunk that he makes. Normally that's a play that he makes and a shot that he finishes. If he finishes that shot there, Kia Center goes crazy, and the Spurs are finally up against the wall. They're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? This is going to be wild. I love that he wound up there, because, again, that's just not something that we see him miss very often. And I know that we probably could have gone a little bit safer. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me. I'm okay with that. But I like the fact that he realized how big that play could have been in that moment. And personally, I'm okay with the fact that he missed that, because I think that you give him that same dunk 100 more times and he's going to make 98 of them. Walk the Dog says Atlanta and Miami are both losing. That could potentially be good for standings fallout that we're going to look at here in a second. Janine Richmond says, don't forget to hit that like button. Absolutely. And TL49er Magic 23 says the Cavs lost 2. Again, we'll look at the scores here in a second. Looks like we might be in for a decent night in terms of we may not have made up ground on some teams in the East, but we might not have lost ground either. So let's see. A couple of other comments. Barclays and S5302 says, more Jace, please. Absolutely. I want to see more Jace. He brings energy. He had a couple of rebounds tonight that I was like, man, that rebound was not a rebound that a guard of his size should be going in for. But I think it's just because he knows he doesn't get much playing time, and when he does come in, he needs to make a difference, and he does that pretty much every single time. So let's look. I'm not seeing many other comments. Just a lot of repeats of some stuff that we've already talked about. But a lot of people are talking about the scores. So we're going to go ahead and get over to the scores from tonight. Toe Life Channel 3679 says, thank you, Janine. Shout out to Janine. Again, we love Janine. So let's go ahead and get over to the scores from tonight. Let's look and see what we've got. Let's refresh here. The Nets are up 96-78 on the Bulls, and with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Michael Porter Jr. has 33, 9, and 3. Josh Giddey's almost got a triple-double, but you're really paying attention to the fact that the Bulls are losing by 20 to the Nets at home there. That's not great. Rockets up 20 on the Kings. No surprises there. Close game between the Pistons and the Bucks in Milwaukee. A 4-point game here with Giannis with a fake injury. Real injury. Am I allowed to say that? If you watch the video, you can let me know if you think that was legit or not with all the stuff going on with whether or not he's going to be traded and he's going to be in Milwaukee long term. I'm not sure if I buy that injury happened the way it did, but we're not a Bucks podcast, so I'm not going to talk about that. Mavericks up 83-66 on the Heat. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you're actually probably hoping that the Bucks can pull this one out against the Pistons because a lot of Eastern Conference teams are losing tonight, with the Cavs losing 122-110 to the Trailblazers. Pacers losing 135-120. Jamal Murray dropped 52 points on Indiana tonight. That is absurd. Wow. My goodness, I'm going to have to go back and watch the tape on that. The Hawks do lose by 23 to the LA Clippers. Harden doesn't even have to go off to make it happen. He had a 27.9 assist game, and the Knicks do take care of the Hornets. LaMelo dropped 34, but Carl Anthony Towns, dropped 35 with 18 rebounds and 5 assists. Let's head on over here to the standings and check out to see what has been updated. It does look like they have updated our record to 13-9. We're 4.5 games back of the Pistons because their game has not completed yet. You are 2 games back of the Raptors in second place, 1.5 games back of the Heat in third, 1 game back of the Knicks in fourth. But man, the Cleveland Cavaliers have dropped down to 7th. The Hawks have dropped down to 8th. The Celtics still hanging in there. Jaylen Brown doing wonders for that team right now, holding them at 12-9. They are a half game back of the Magic, and the Celtics are, I believe, stagnant tonight. They will not be moving up or down the standings, regardless of how anything goes this evening. Let's check the chat for a couple more things before we head out tonight. Just a lot of comments about scores and how it's going to impact the Magic in the standings. Comment from TJ Vroom 7076. I'm going to go ahead and probably close this off on this tonight, is that you cannot take 2 L's in a row. Here's the thing. You can't take 2 L's in a row. And the one thing I will say about trap games is that if you are going to have a trap game like tonight against San Antonio, and you are going to lose a game like tonight, then you better show up and win the game that you were focused on causing you to lose this one. If you were paying attention to the game on Friday, you were paying attention to the game on Sunday, and you were paying attention to those, then I'm not going to say that's fine, because that's not fine. You always have to pay attention to the opponent that's right in front of you. But if you're going to lose tonight's game because you're paying attention to Friday's game against the Heat, then the energy that you lacked in this first half, you better have on Friday. Just bottom line. Period. End of sentence there. You know, it's you have to show up better on Friday. If you didn't have the energy on Monday and on Wednesday, if a big game against the Heat that you're going to be circling back around and playing again the next Tuesday for a semifinal in the or a quarterfinal in the NBA Cup, if that isn't enough to have this team show up with some energy out of the gate in the first quarter, right from tip, then I don't know what is, and I don't know what will be. So I'm definitely hoping that we can show up on Friday against the lowercase h Heat. And that will be the next time that we are here for the Six-Man Show Postgame Live. I know that Jonathan and Kev are probably going to be dropping an episode sometime in the evening. When you wake up tomorrow morning, it will be available on all platforms wherever you listen to your podcasts. So they will be talking about tonight's game, but they will also be talking about Monday's win against the Chicago Bulls. So we will be back on Friday. As we have said, we do these after every win, after every loss. They're parties after wins. They're therapy after losses. But we are blessed to be able to do this. We're grateful to be able to do it for the greatest fan base in the world. We love you guys. We're looking forward to the game. There's 3 huge games coming up. Friday against the Heat, Sunday against the Knicks, Tuesday against the Heat. There are some big games coming up. So show up, support the team, make it to the game next Tuesday. Buy tickets if you haven't already. Make sure that we're packing that place out with Magic fans, but we will see you Friday night after the game. And until then, let's go Magic.